Hi, I'm Megan from Pop Lush Embroidery, and in this video I'm going to teach you the 4 basic stitches. With these 4 stitches you'll be able to sew any of the designs in my shop. Most of the kits, if I'm being honest, only use 2 stitches. However, you can get fancy and use all 4 of them at once if you like. So, the first stitch that we're going to learn is the running stitch. This is the easiest stitch, and I know you can do it because it's just going up and down. So I've got my needle threaded, the knot at the end, and I'm going to start from the underside. I'm going to come up, and I'm just going to go down. Now, on my pre-printed designs, these are used in the backgrounds of things, like on my foxes and hedgehogs that kind of look like confetti. On other kits, they're the really short lines in a pattern. Since I am just working on white fabric, I'm just going to make my own little shapes. So my running stitches are generally between 1/4 and 1/3 of an inch in length when I'm freestyling. So we're going to do a few more. So we simply come up and down. And up. And down. And that's the running stitch. The second stitch is called a back stitch. So back stitch is used to make straight lines in my patterns. So a lot of my architectural kits will have this, or long lines in, say, tulips. So to start the back stitch, we're going to make a running stitch. So just like we did before, it's up and down. Now we can't go back up the same hole that we did because we want to make a line here. So I'm going to jump forward on my little imaginary line about the length of a running stitch. You can see my threads being knotty here. There we go. And then I'm going to go back down at the end of my first stitch so that my stitches will meet each other. So now I want to keep moving forward. So I'm going to come up at the end of my second stitch and do a running stitch forward. Now again, we can't come back up this hole because it'll just pull the stitch out. So we're going to move forward on our little line and go back down the last stitch. And that's the back stitch. The third stitch is called the split stitch. So this stitch is used for nice curving lines. So we're going to start again with a running stitch. They'll come up and go down. Now, we're going to just do another running stitch, but we're going to come up actually in the last stitch. So you can see here where my needle is. It's about 2/3 of the way through the stitch. And I'm actually just splitting the stitch. So I've got 2 strands on one side of the needle and 1 strand on another side. And I will start to make a little curve here. So the curvier and tighter of a curve that you want to create, the smaller your stitches need to be and the closer together. So I'm just coming up about 2/3 of the way through the last stitch and then going forward with a running stitch. And that is the split stitch. All right, the last stitch is called the satin stitch. So this stitch is used to fill in areas. On my architectural kits, it fills in windows. On other animal ones, it can fill in eyes or spots or ears. I've even had some people fill in their succulents completely. They have a lot more patience than I do, but it looks gorgeous. So on a pre-printed design, it would be a solid block of color on the fabric. Here I'm freestyling, so I will attempt to make a square. Tried this before and it became a cone, but we'll see. So I'm going to come up and I'm just going to make another running stitch. All right, so now I've got one little side of my square. So this stitch will take a little bit of hand-eye coordination because you want to come back up right next to the start of your last stitch. And then, I'm imagining that I have a square here, so I'm going to come down right at the end of the last stitch, just under it. It's another running stitch. So basically, we're just using running stitches to span a distance. And I always suggest moving in one direction, left to right, left to right, left to right, instead of going back and forth, because it spans the back distance as well. I'll show you in just a second here. So you can see what it looks like on the front, starting to fill in. On the back, it's also starting to fill in, and this will strengthen it and make it less likely to pucker. So we're just coming up right next to the last stitch and down right next to the last stitch. So you can see without without a pre-printed design, my square has got a little wavy shape to it. But you can see where this starts to really look nice and solid as you go. So that is the satin stitch. So now that you know all 4 of your stitches, the running stitch, the back stitch, the split stitch, and the satin stitch, you are ready to sew any kit in my shop. So I hope you have a lot of fun with your very first embroidery or your 8th embroidery. And really feel free to use whatever stitches you like on my patterns. That's what makes them so great. So happy stitching!